Welcome to the channel. I am the host. This is A Different Liberal. I will always keep it real with you guys, no hesitation. So let's get into it. So today I was watching Brian Tyler Cohen, and I just didn't agree with some of what he was saying.
I've noticed something about the Democratic Party's post-mortem, that competing factions within the party are pointing fingers, using the election results as confirmation that their end of the ideological spectrum is what's right for the party moving forward. And no matter where somebody falls on that spectrum, there's plenty of evidence to reinforce their argument. So, like progressives, for example, can point to an over-reliance on Liz Cheney and camo hats and guns to explain why Kamala Harris lost, just as easily as moderates can point to the fact that conservative Democrats like Jared Golden and Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez ran far ahead of Kamala Harris in their respective districts. And we can argue in circles forever about why our own personal ideology should win out, and if I know anything about Democrats, we will, but it's time to drop this idea that any one monolithic ideology is the correct ideology. Look, the Democrats' blessing and curse is that we are a big tent party that spans from Joe Manchin to Bernie Sanders. For those of us who value living in a pluralistic society, that is our strength.
Play video. I agree with him on this. To me, there's no reason why we're fighting amongst ourselves, or why she lost, pointing fingers at each other. I mean, at this point, are we out from under it yet?
But with that comes a responsibility to recognize that we have to make concessions to people who, under that big tent, don't always see eye to eye. If that means that Manchin, for example, is only aligned with the majority of the party 70% of the time as a Democrat from West Virginia, so be it. Why? Because the alternative is a Republican from West Virginia for whom agreement with the Democrats even 10% of the time would be nothing short of a small miracle.
The problem in making concessions is that they have consequences. You know, like these kinds of consequences.
West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin on Sunday announced that he intends to oppose a sweeping voting rights bill backed by the majority of his fellow Democrats that would expand access to voting across the United States.
And so the point is that we have to stop imposing purity tests onto all Democrats to ensure that everybody aligns perfectly within whatever narrow worldview we've decided warrants membership in the party.
If it's our narrow worldview on our elected politicians, shouldn't it be our view that matters on these elected politicians?
I would rather have a Democrat who's 50% with us than a Republican who is 0% with us. And I'd venture to guess that most people can agree with that logic. We cannot be blinded by our pursuit of perfection. The fact is that in our elected officials, we're not looking for a spouse. We're not looking for a partner. We're not looking for a spiritual leader. This isn't marriage or church or temple. It is politics.
You're right. My bad for thinking my elected official would care about the things we're asking for. I must have been blinded by pursuit of a better world.
The goal is to elect people who will win and who will be the most effective vehicles to get us closest to where we want to go. We're taking a bus to the nearest stop, not a car that delivers us right to our front door. And so if that means that we've got a conservative Democrat who, for example, supports the Democratic agenda except for guns and fossil fuels, that person is still preferable to a Republican who supports none of the Democratic agenda.
This must have been the bus that I got on, and Joe Manchin was the driver. And if guns and fossil fuels were the only things that he was against, then okay. But this bus never comes to a complete stop. I can't even get off that. And it's not a 50%. It's more like 80-20.
I've always said this, Brett. If I can't go home and explain it to the people of West Virginia, I can't vote for it. And I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't.
Is it ideal? Of course not. And look, this is coming from me, a progressive who wants Medicare for all, Green New Deal, zero fossil fuels, and assault weapons ban. But even I recognize that all of that counts for nothing if we don't actually hold power. We cannot let perfect be the enemy of good. Our pursuit of the moral high ground, while certainly noble, counts for nothing if it costs us a position of power where we can actually put those noble principles into practice.
And when does the practice end? How about elected officials do what they were elected to do and not look for some pat on the back? Now that's noble. Thanks for checking out the channel. You guys know what to do. Subscribe, help me reach more people. I am the host. This has been A Different Liberal. Peace.